Hank is the newest epic brawler coming to the game, and he is the second brawler in the underwater trio along with Otis. He's a shrimp that redesigned a fish tank to an actual army tank. Since he doesn't breathe air very well, his tank is completely full of water, so he's pretty much always inside of it while on land. Even though he's in the same trio as Otis, that doesn't mean they get along very well. Hank likes his tank clean, and Otis gets paint everywhere. Now he also has B2B written on the side of his helmet, which I think means born to brawl, but he keeps a playing card on the other side of his helmet. We've got more to cover, but I want to give a huge thank you to HoYoverse for sponsoring this video. Honkai Star Rail is their newest RPG available for mobile and PC, and it can be played cross-platform. You are absolutely going to want to click the link in the description below to download it now. This game is actually from the same developers that made Genshin Impact, which I have played just an insane amount. It's so much fun. And Honkai Star Rail actually takes place in the same world as Honkai Impact. You travel through the universe on a spaceship called the Astral Express. There are tons of different worlds you can explore, and each have their own environments and species, as well as treasures to collect and puzzles to solve. Many of the characters you find throughout your travels can actually be added to your party, and you can upgrade specific allies that best fit your favorite strategies. Depending on which enemies you're fighting and what environments you're fighting them in, certain characters can be better or worse, so there's really no end to figuring out the best strategies for each situation. Honkai Star Rail is also a turn-based game with very simple mechanics, so even if you're playing on mobile, it's easy enough to be played just about anywhere you go. And honestly, as far as mobile games go, the graphics and sci-fi aesthetics in this game are top level. The game just launched, so I haven't been able to try it out, but I've been waiting for a long time. And lucky for you, you don't have to wait because it's available now. So click that link below and you'll be one of the first people to jump into the awesome world of Honkai Star Rail. And once again, a huge thank you to HoYoverse for sponsoring this video.
I've got brains and prawn. I was prawn ready. Full speed, all directions.
I'll show you all of his voice lines and pins at the end of this video. Hank's main attack is Balloon Blast. His tank starts inflating a bubble that gets bigger and stronger the longer you hold on to it. His ammo bar works a lot like Amber's, but instead of showing how much ammo he has, the ammo bar shows you how inflated his bubble is. Similar to B's attack, Hank can only fire one ammo at a time, and there is a significant cooldown between each of his attacks, but there's no bar indicating how long that is. After some testing, I found out that auto aiming as fast as you can will actually deal more damage over time than if you were to fully charge his bubble with each attack. Also, his attack does go through walls and will deal damage to anything that it explodes on. Just keep in mind that enemies cannot see Hank charging his bubble when he's hiding in a bush, but they can see the bubble if he's out in the open, so they will know to stay away from him when they get close to him with a charged bubble. Hank's super is Fish Torpedoes. Hank fires 6 similar torpedoes in a similar pattern to Spike's needles after each main attack blows up. Now, these torpedoes travel so far that they will almost always either hit a wall or an enemy before disappearing on most maps. Now, the aiming reticle doesn't actually show you where the torpedoes will fire, so you're gonna have to memorize the pattern if you try to hit a target at a distance. Hank's first gadget is water balloons. Hank's next attack will slow everything that it hits for 3 seconds. This gadget is pretty straightforward, but 3 seconds is a long time, and charging his attack actually makes no difference with this gadget. So if somebody gets a little bit too close, he can use this gadget, slow them, and then spam his attack on them. Also, just keep in mind that the slow does not change in duration depending on how big the bubble blast is. Hank's second gadget is Barricade. When he activates this gadget, he instantly gets a shield that blocks 40% of all damage dealt to him for the next 3 seconds. For reference, this is literally Crow's defense booster gadget. There's no difference. That being said, Hank has almost triple the health that Crow does, so it might be a little bit better for him. Hank's first star power is It's Gonna Blow. This star power increases Hank's movement speed by 20% while his main attack is charged up by 80% or higher. It takes 3 seconds for you to fully inflate a bubble, and you can only hold it for 3 more seconds once it's full. So to save you the math, he can get speed boosted for 3.6 seconds at most. That's going to be a lot of speed boost throughout the match since he doesn't even have to hit anything to activate it. Hank's second star power is Take Cover. With this star power equipped, as long as Hank is right next to a wall, he receives a shield that blocks 20% of all damage dealt to him. This shield has no time limit to it, but you can see right here that you really do have to be right next to the wall in order to get the shield. I also tested to see if Hank's second gadget would stack on top of his star power, but it looks like the gadget doesn't even work if the star power is activated, at least not now. That might be fixed once he's actually released. Now it's time to put his stats and abilities to the test, starting with Hank's worst tests and working his way up to the best of the Olympics. First up is the auto aim test. Hank's main attack with no charge can't even reach Nita from more than 1 tile away, but the attack can deal damage instantly, so Hank is now the only brawler in the game that can successfully auto aim from only 1 tile away, but the attack deals its damage instantly, so he gets 64th place. Next is the attack range test, and his attack range depends on how long the bubble is charging for. The smallest it can be is 2 2/3 tiles, and the biggest is 5 1/3 tiles, so he actually ties with Mortis for 58th place. Next is the 3 attack kill test. Now, technically, he could do 9,000 damage, which is pretty crazy with 3 attacks, but this test is about figuring out what kind of brawlers a brawler can actually 3-shot really quickly. So I only let him use his first attack and then auto aim the other 2 attacks. That's 4,500 total damage, which ties him with Colette and Janet for 58th place. One thing to keep in mind is that if you fully charge an attack for full 3 seconds, enemies actually have enough time to start healing before you reach the max damage. Next, we have the swarm test. Hank starts by fully charging his first attack to destroy as many bots as possible, and his next 2 attacks don't need to be fully charged, but charged enough to take out the right amount of bots. There's only 2 left, which can instantly be destroyed by Hank's super. He defeats the swarm in 10.4 seconds. That is enough for 49th place. From this point on, Hank is better than half of the brawlers in the game, which is pretty impressive because we've got a lot of tests left. First up is the race test. Now, Hank has a normal movement speed just like most brawlers in the game, but his first star power gives him a speed boost while his bubble is charged, so he's able to charge 2 of them throughout this test and finishes in 11.2 seconds. This ties him with Gale and Shelly for 29th place. Next is the box test, and even though it takes Hank a while to unload each attack, he can hit multiple boxes, so he's at least better than average at this test. Now, I could have done this a little bit faster, honestly, but perfectly inflating every single bubble to where it does the max damage at the perfect size or whatever, it's just nearly impossible. It takes him 43.2 seconds to complete this test, which puts him in 29th place. Next, we have the splash test. Now, Hank doesn't need any help from his star power in this test because he only needs 3 attacks to destroy all the boxes at the exact same time. He does have to charge each shot almost all the way up, so it does take him 10.7 seconds to break them all, but that is enough for 29th place. Next is a supercharge test. One thing that's interesting is that his supercharge does not depend on the size of his bubble or the amount of damage that he does. It just takes him 3 attacks to charge his super every single time. To auto aim that, it takes 1.7 seconds, so that actually ties Hank with Otis for 25th place. Next is the survival test. Now, Hank doesn't have any abilities that heal himself, but he has 2 different abilities that give him a shield. Now, his gadget gives him a stronger shield than his star power does, but it's only temporary, so he has to rely on the star power once his 3rd gadget is used. Now, like I mentioned earlier, it looks like you can't use his star power and his gadget together, at least for the time being, but that might be fixed later on. And now, I should also mention that Hank is tied with El Primo for having the 2nd most health in the game, so these shields actually helps a lot. He survives for 33.4 seconds. That puts him in 16th place and is a good indicator of just how tanky he is. Next is the super range test. In Brawl Talk, they said that Hank's torpedoes would travel until they hit a wall or a target. There actually is a limit to how far they can travel, and that limit is 20 tiles exactly, so Hank gets 6th place for the super range test, which is still very impressive. Next, we have the reload test. Now, Hank has a very unique ammo bar, but I decided to see how fast he can unload and reload 10 attacks just like the rest of the brawlers. His attack can technically charge for 3 seconds if you want to deal max damage, so that would give him the slowest reload speed in the game, but if you auto aim 10 quick attacks, it takes 7.8 seconds, so that's 0.78 seconds to reload 1 attack. That does put him in 3rd place. So if you are spamming his attack, he has a very quick reload speed. Next, we have the super damage test. Hank fires 6 projectiles that each do 1,500 damage with his super. Based on what happened when I attacked with these bots in the training cave, I think he can only hit brawlers with 3 torpedoes at max, which would deal 4,500 damage. But if he is directly on top of a large target like the boss in the training cave or a heist safe, he can deal 10,500 damage with all 6 torpedoes, so he gets 3rd place. Up next, we have the 1-second DPS test. This test is all about figuring out how much burst damage can be done within 1 second against a single target. Now, Hank barely has enough time to fire 3 supers within the same second. Even though he doesn't have any time to use his regular attacks, he still does 31,500 damage in total, which is way more than enough to put him in 2nd place. Interestingly enough, Maisie, the most recent brawler, actually got 1st. Next, we have the area test. Now, Hank's attack can break 22 skulls, which isn't that impressive, but 1 torpedo from his super can break over 40 skulls, and he fires 6 of them in 6 different directions. His super breaks 302 skulls put together, so he gets a total score of 324 skulls, which puts him in 2nd place. That would suggest he's really good at area control, which is not really very accurate, but it's really fun to watch. Finally, we have the boss test. It takes Hank a couple of seconds to charge up his super, but once he gets his first one, each one after that instantly recharges the next one, and it only takes him 5.9 seconds in total for Hank to destroy the boss. That actually puts Hank in first place for this test, and he completes it almost in half the time that it takes Griff, who took second place before him. But that's not all. We also have the assassin test. Hank is able to hit the boss with 7 supers in just 30 seconds. In total, he deals 73,500 damage in those 3 seconds, which is by far the best score out of all the brawlers. We literally just had Maisie destroy all the brawlers in this test, and Hank almost doubled her score, which is just insane. So, Hank looks like he's ridiculously OP on paper, but how strong do I actually think he's going to be against players? First up, we have Gem Grab, and I'm hesitantly going to go with A tier. He might struggle a little bit to move up on the map in a game of Gem Grab, but I do think that if he can get close to the enemy spawn and hide behind a wall, if the enemy team does not have a wall breaker, it's going to be very hard for the enemy team to get him out because he offers a ton of map control. He doesn't have range to be a good gem carrier, but I'm still going to put him in the A tier for Gem Grab because really all he has to do is just get high up. He has so much HP, he can survive forever, and then he just blows up that bubble, and people can see that. And it's kind of like Frank's super, where Frank doesn't even need to use his super to apply pressure to the enemy team. They don't want to get hit with that 3,000 bubble damage, so they're going to fall back either way. Next is Brawl Ball, and I could see him being S tier here. I think it's going to be his best game mode for several reasons, and the most obvious one is just how tanky he is. Hank the Tank is a tank above the rest of the tanks. I'm sorry I said that. That's really awkward, but that's what I said. Between his 9,000 total health and his 2 abilities that give him a shield, he will be able to walk the ball into the goal a lot. He might even be better at using shields than Rosa is. And even if he's not close enough to the wall to be able to walk the ball into the goal, his bubble will actually continue to charge if he picks up the ball while he's already charging it, which means that he can kick the ball forward and deal 3,000 damage to anyone between him and the goal. I have a feeling that might need to get nerfed because that is ridiculous, and he's definitely S tier for Brawl Ball. Next is Heist, and originally I was going to put Hank in the C tier for Heist just because his bubble can go through targets and deal really heavy damage to the safe, but it just takes too long for him to charge that in Heist. However, I found out that you can deal maximum damage to the safe with his super if you're right on top of it, so in my opinion, I think that he's at least B tier. That's 17% off of the safe's health just like that, which is crazy. Next is Bounty, and Hank obviously doesn't have very good range, but I could see him being a decent brawler for Bounty on the right map, and if you have the right brawlers on your team like Byron or Poco to help keep him alive. He's going to need enough walls on the right map, but on the right situation, I could see him being useful for Bounty. Next is Hot Zone, and I feel like Hot Zone is probably going to be one of his better game modes because a fully charged bubble can almost cover the entire zone. But even more importantly, Hank has just so much health, and he's got so many great shields that all he needs is one healer on his team for the enemy to have a very hard time getting him out of the zone. Next is Knockout, which I think is going to be one of his worst game modes. He's really only going to be good once the smoke gets everybody close to each other, and honestly, even after the smoke starts rolling in, it's still going to take a while before the enemies are actually forced to be within his range. Maybe his health will help keep him alive until then, but I feel like C tier is the highest I can give him there. As for Solo Showdown, I'm going to go with C tier as well. He really doesn't have good range to make him good in Solo Showdown. He doesn't really have like good burst damage. Like even an Edgar can just out heal Hank's damage because like it takes so long for him to charge or just spam his attacks. There's that long delay between each attack. I could see him doing okay if you just camp in a bush until you can hit enemies on the other side of a wall, but unless you're totally surprising your enemies, Hank's just gonna struggle by himself. As for Duo Showdown, I'm gonna hesitantly say he's a little bit better in Duo Showdown just because he might have a teammate on his side that can try and like heal him or something like that. His main attack will often be able to hit both enemy brawlers, so that is at least something going for him in Duo Showdown. So I feel like B tier is probably the best I can give for him. And overall competitively, I'm gonna put him like in the low A tier, maybe high B tier, where people will play him competitively in the right maps and modes or in the right situations, but not all the time. That's all I gotta say, but stick around for all of his voice lines and his pins. And make sure you subscribe.
Time for a shrimpy skirmish. I love the smell of seafood in the morning. Smells like victory. I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house down. Left, right, I'm so ready for a fight. Ah! Check out my pincer maneuver. Full speed, all directions. No fish. Attack formation, Oscar Papa. Hope you get food poisoning. Oh, crab cake. Feeling clammy. Oh, I got shell-shocked. I conked out. Oh, ready for the seafood buffet. The horror. The horror. Time to respawn. I don't want to play no more. Time to go. I'll find the door. Oh, this means war. There will be retaliation. I will rain shellfire upon you. Stop shelling! Oh, I'm a limp shrimp. I'm a claw-biting citizen. You can't handle the crust. I've got brains and prawn. Lobster mobster. Check out the muscles on this. Krilling in the name of. Got krills to pay the bills. 1, 2, 3, 4. I just swept you off the floor. I'm in the krill zone. Master of the krilling field. I'm a prawn star. You will not laugh. You will not cry. You will learn by the numbers, and I will teach you. Left, right, I'm the one who won the fight. I might be a shrimp, but I ain't no wimp. Time to rally the troops. I was prawn ready. I'll give you shrimp cocktail. Hey, who ordered the shrimp? I'm a whale. Something smells fishy.